Hello, everyone. This is Ismael Arribas from the Standardization Committee and Advisor in LACNet. And I am very glad that today we have a premiere interview with Gilbert Verdian, CEO of Quant Network and also convener for the Working Group 7 of Interoperability in International Standard Organization. How are you, Gilbert?
Hi, Isma. Very good and great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
No, it's really a pleasure to deliver your experience to our community. Well, let's go for this session of the interview. Uh, the first question is based on the experience you are having, and what is the current status of standards for interoperability in DLT, and what are the main challenge and also the benefits about it, please.
Yeah, I think if you look at DLT in general, it's a technology that's been around for quite a while. I mean, one of the first applications of it was 2009 with the Satoshi paper, and people were building and designing blockchain and DLT without standardization. Everyone was building things in isolation. Everyone was creating another chain that does the same thing as every other chain. And the problem that I saw very early on was around 2013. Where we're building things that can't connect or interoperate with each other, and that was going to be a big problem for the industry because without standards, everything would be proprietary. And the challenge that we will have is you need to have a new language, a new technology stack, a new team just to manage each DLT that you wanted to use. So the problem was easily solved if everyone worked together from the beginning. And when I was looking at this, I was working in government. I went from the UK to the Australian government for 2 years. So I was looking at how do we standardize this in the right way. And there's different types of standardization. There's, open source community types where people make things and release it, and it's open source and everyone can contribute to it, and it becomes a standard on its own. And there's a lot of legacy things that have been done in technology. There's some technology standards which companies set, protocols. If you remember peer-to-peer networks, things like Napster that created peer-to-peer networks as a standard. Everyone used it and that became the main thing. Or there's standard setting bodies, like standard setting organizations such as ISO, IEEE, Sense and LEC, etc. And what I wanted to do was to do this top level down and to do it properly. Because if you take a community approach, it'll take a long time. And it may not be what the industry adopts. So all of that effort could just be siloed within a small community. And what I wanted to do was to make this global. So the right way was looking at ISO. So ISO is one of the world's leading standards development organizations. It's international by its nature, and every country has committees and mirror committees working at the ISO level, but then they also have it working within their own country. So it's been around for decades, and it's been proven that it's one of the best ways to develop standards in collaboration with the industry, with experts, etc. So what I started to do around 2013 was get ready to create an ISO standard, and that was very complicated because it's not just a matter of filling in a form and it starts. You need to have enough buy-in. You need to have a lot of momentum behind it, a lot of collaboration behind it. So it took about 2, maybe 3 years to get it off the ground. So creating the ISO standard was really a catalyst for bringing financial services, bringing industry, bringing institutions and experts together. And the work started 2013. It signed off around 2016, so the approval was done. And then 2017 was when the first ISO standard blockchain, which was TC307. Technical Committee 307 was established, and that was April 2017. So that goal of that whole purpose of the standard was to start setting the foundation in terms of what language we're all saying is the right term, and we all agree on the definitions, and then working on the more technical aspects, such as my focus has always been interoperability since 2013. So working on interoperability, working on security, working on architecture, reference architecture, etc., and then using that to expand out the work. So TC307 officially launched April 2017. And it's been running since then, and the status of it has been really, really amazing at the contribution that we've seen from each country, from experts, and there's been over 50, 60 countries working on the standard. There's been various working groups, so you don't do everything in one group. You split up the work across different groups. For me, as I explained, interoperability was a passion and a challenge. So I currently am the convener of the Interoperability Working Group, WG7, Working Group 7. And then there's other working groups, WG1, 2, 3, etc., etc. So they've been evolving since then. So I guess the status is standards are being developed. They are very close to publication. We already have a few that have come out from ISO TC307. There's a lot of cross collaboration from different standards bodies. So across the EU, across international bodies, IEEE, etc., ITUT. So there's a lot of work that's being done and harmonization on that. And there's real tangible standards that people can start using today, and that's great to see, because we don't want to build things that don't work together, and we don't want to build things that are not standardized. And as institutions, most people rely on standards, so it's a great way for the mainstream adoption of DLT, because it's standardized, it'll be more trusted, and there'll be more adoption of it.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, I am really contributing through the liaison that we have with ISO and LACNet, and very focused in the Working Group 7. Indeed, we are providing for the next plenary that is going to happen this November a potential new project, which is a market demand, to be honest, that we have detected in LACNet. And it's in regards of interoperability for digital wallets, an interoperable protocol for digital wallets in blockchain. What would be your best recommendation for engaging with ISO TC307, and especially in your Working Group 7? Just now is the point where we are providing on time this new work item proposal.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent question. So the work that's been done in Working Group 7 has been to create an interoperability framework, which is a technical standard around what it takes to enable interoperability from different technologies, different vendors, different products, etc. And that's coming to publication. So since the last plenary, which was earlier this year, so over the course of this year, the document has the framework, which is the interoperability framework, has been updated and finalized for publication review, which is called, the stage is called DTS. And what that means is it's the final update, and it's gone out to ballot, which basically everyone gets a copy. They have to review it and provide input. And then once that input is provided, then it's published, and then the standard is published. So we'll have a new interoperability framework being published from ISO, which is a standard, and that will be adopted and used by industry, because it'll be available for everyone to use. So from a working group perspective, that was the work item that the scope of WG7 was tasked to do, and that's coming to an end. So that that basically creates that overarching standard around interoperability. And what we need to look at next is how do we support that framework and add different types of standards. So there could be a whole series of interoperability standards coming out, and the top one is the first one, and that's published soon. And now we can start looking at what's the next thing we need to standardize. And I think the use case you looked at, and LACNet is proposing as well, is really valid because of wallets. And if you think about the critical need for digital wallets, I mean, there's various types, right? There's Ethereum type wallets, there's other blockchain type wallets, there's custody, off-chain, there's digital, as in legacy, like bank type wallets, all managed by keys. So as a next layer down from the interoperability framework, wallets is a natural progression. So what that means is a body such as LACNet would have to put forward a new work item proposal to the committee, to TC307. That's discussed, which is the next plenary, which is in November. And then if it's accepted, then that work, the new work item proposal, is assigned to WG7. So for working group 7, we'll pick it up, and we'll, as the first standard will be published and finished, then this could be the next piece of work to actually start working on. And there's a set timeline. I think it's only 3 years you have to work together and define that. So I guess what recommendations, it's good to get a good understanding and a buy-in from everyone. So members of ISO, so each country and each delegation, you need to have the consensus and the majority for people to say this is a good idea and we need to do it. There has to be a market need, which you said, Isma, which is very relevant. I mean, there's no point in standardizing something that is not needed or not being used. So definite market need for that. And then that liaison of educating everyone and getting them on board. So when it comes to deciding what work item and what we should do next, there's already a good understanding amongst everyone. So it's an easier way to get that over the line. So it's a lot of communication and a lot of discussion.
Yeah, thank you for this advice, because we are keen to progress the on-time presentation for this new work item with an endorsement as well for this market need. I really appreciate this good advice from your experience. Let me join two questions in one, because you slightly mentioned why ISO is critical for the adoption and trust of interoperability and trust and DLT technologies, but also what is the influence, or how do you see this influence from the International Standard Organization in the future development of blockchain and DLT? Let's combine these two situations: the critical for the adoption of ISO in this trust and DLT technologies, and how do you see this influence from ISO in the future development?
Yeah, it's a good question. So from a standard setting organization, so ISO is pretty well regarded and well respected, and it's been doing that role for decades. So it's very well established, not just in DLT, but in everything else. I mean, there's standards in manufacturing, there's standards in cybersecurity, which is my background, and all of these things have been developed with industry, with experts in different committees, and they've been worked on in the same process and manner until they're published. And then even when they're published, you still work on those to update them every few years, and it keeps going. So ISO is a very nice neutral organization. I mean, it's headquartered in Geneva, so from that perspective, different countries are part of ISO, and they have committees in each country that participate in different working groups and in different technical committees. And they also have mirror committees. So each country has its own standard setting body in their own country. So in the UK, it's the BSI. In other countries in Europe, there's various, every country has one. So from that perspective, it's a critical way to bring everyone together. And ISO works hand in hand with other standard setting bodies like the ITUT, Sensenelec, IEEE, etc. And the nice thing about what we've done in DLT and in TC307, it's been a very collaborative effort, because we've done an annual harmonization, which is really done through the European Commission, and I know, Isma, you've been very involved in that. And it's been through a body called INATBA, which has been set up as a member body to bring all of the blockchain effort together. And so the harmonization work just basically, educates everyone on what everyone is working on in different bodies, in different standards, bringing it together so everyone is aware and across the work and the efforts, and just making sure that it's not being duplicated. Because if someone is working on something very technical, for example, then there's no need for someone else to repeat the same thing and to do the same thing. So from an ISO perspective, it's a nice way to feed up and have that almost a hierarchy of effort in terms of what we can standardize. So why is it important? Because it's widely respected, and if you think commercially, like, what does ISO really mean? It means different products, different vendors, different technologies, especially in blockchain, in the effort that we're doing, is going to be backwards compatible. So if you're using a particular thing, and you're a company, and you buy and spend millions implementing a technology or a solution, and it's standards compliant from the beginning, right? So that means you've got comfort in knowing that product and that technology will work because it's compliant and it's been checked to a standard. And you know that in 2 or 3 years' time, you can actually swap it out with another technology, and it will give you continuity. So you'll be able to continue working in terms of what your business is by swapping out that technology with another vendor. And because they're both based on standards, it's going to have minimal impact to your business and to your organization. So standards are important, because what happens is when large organizations are buying technology, in the contracts, they will say this has to be compliant to ISO standard 1234, whatever the number is. And that way it gives them the assurance that they don't have proprietary technology. They don't have a risk in terms of that company and the skills. If it's proprietary and no one else knows how to use it, then they're stuck. It gives them the ability to remove that vendor lock-in, because the technology is compatible with other vendor versions. And it gives them the comfort and knowing in 2 or 3 years' time, they can swap it out if they want to, if for whatever reason. So from a adoption perspective, by having a standard, you'll get more mainstream adoption of blockchain. And that's very important, because no one wants to buy proprietary things. There was that challenge back in the 70s and 80s where people bought proprietary systems like mainframes and legacy things, from that era. And because they were proprietary, they got stuck with that technology, and it was very difficult and very expensive to move away from it. And that's what institutions and enterprise don't want to do again. So standards is a great way to solve that friction and that barrier for adoption, but it enables mainstream adoption of blockchain. So, the vision I have is blockchain will be everywhere. It'll be on every system, on every phone, on every computer, on networks. When you're doing a transaction, when you're doing something, a transfer, whatever you're working on, there'll be blockchain behind it, but you won't see it, and you don't need to see it. It'll be invisible to the end user. But because of standards, all of that transaction and the value is going to be powered by blockchain, which is the right way to do it.
Well, thank you. Very, very interesting, this perspective from the commercial continuity that is providing ISO, this consensus for a natural adoption as well. Very interesting, this part. And you made me think that one of the efforts that we are doing in LACNet is to unlock the value of the digital public good. And I personally know your efforts talking to different regulators, central banks, and so on. How do you see this, let's say, booming of the adoption with the stable coins, with the CBDC, with the Internet? We are keen to deploy the thing Web3 and provide even this casuistic to the ISO TC307. How do you see what is a good recommendation for our team to work on it to help our community?
Yeah, we've been very familiar with first the LACChain and then later LACNet. I mean, we were very early users and participants of the project, and we've been very involved since many years ago. I think 5 years ago we first started, and we did a lot of work to prove the infrastructure is fit for purpose. It's capable for transacting value. It's capable for institution grade adoption, and the work that we did was around netting settlement between banks and doing that on blockchain as a potential stable coin. So we've done a lot of work in that space since 5 years ago, and what we're seeing is that experimentation phase of blockchain has stopped from banks, from institutions, from central banks. They've been experimenting. They understand the capability. They know what use cases are possible, but they also understand the value of blockchain, because what they're implementing is a new infrastructure, and this doesn't happen often. I mean, it's not often you create a whole bank and a financial system and a payment infrastructure. It only happens every 30 years. So what we're seeing is they've seen opportunity to implement DLT, to implement blockchain for the transformation of financial services, the transformation of finance, of money, of value. And using that infrastructure, they've understood that it lowers cost, firstly, because running all of these things on your side, so bank side or institution side, takes a lot of money and effort. I mean, issuing money on a network, issuing assets, doing a bond, doing shares, everything in financial services is very heavy in terms of effort and costs to any business. Then maintaining that is extremely heavy. And think, lots of data centers with lots of kit, and they're running all of these applications and infrastructure just to be able to do a transaction. And if you look at blockchain, it does a similar thing, but at a fraction of the cost, because the infrastructure is built to be scalable. It's built to be trusted, because you have your nodes and each node trusts each other nodes. It's built to be secure because of the key management, the peer-to-peer network and tokenization, hashes, and then the encryption. And there's a lot of work that's been done in LACNet and LACChain previously on quantum encryption, on a public good, on a public blockchain. So bringing all of those things in, it makes financial institutions trade and transact at a much cheaper and better way. And they're seeing the business case. And the work that we do is around tokenizing money and the settlement of money. And it's digital money, so programmable digital money from commercial banks, so bank stablecoin, or even bank tokenized deposits. And we've done work in CBDCs before with the Bank of England and the BIS and the ECB, for example. So what they're seeing is they're able to create new financial products and instruments that run on blockchain that are superior to what we've got today. They are able to run that at a fraction of the cost. And for them, they can make a lot of money from it. And I think that's the inflection point from moving from experiment to moving into real world production, mainstream adoption. And so for an infrastructure like LACChain, and there's been similar use cases in the EU, like EBSI, that is a great foundation. That layer is a great layer to start building these institution use cases, where you're using that layer to create value and transact value and have programmable tokenized bank deposits, have programmable bank stablecoins, and run those applications on an infrastructure like LACNet. And the banks will do it because it's trusted, it's secure, and it's a lot cheaper than what they're doing today, and that's a great way. But the key of all of this is it comes back to interoperability, and it also comes back to standards. So it's very important to build out these use cases on these infrastructure with interoperability and standards in mind, because banks and institutions and consumers and businesses, we want to be able to connect and transact all around the world. We don't want to be limited to a small market or a small network. And that's key to making LACNet interoperable with everything else. We'll give it reach and give it access to new markets, but that's what's important to people using it, from banks or from customers.
Fantastic. Yeah, you give a perfect perimeter to the different angles that indeed is what a public good and a digital public good we are building together. Really nice. Thank you for that elaborative response. Finally, if you could give one advice for organizations looking to align their blockchain projects with international standards from the outset, what could be this advice, Gilbert?
Firstly, there's a growing pool of experts in blockchain, so that's a great start. We need more expertise, and there's various types of blockchains. There's different types: private, public, permissionless. They do different things, but we need expertise, and that's very important for engineers, product people, business people, decision makers, to become experts in blockchain. So whoever they are, if they're an organization, become an expert. Use the technology, understand the technology, implement it so you know how it works from that perspective. You become an expert. Then the best thing to do is get involved with your local organization mirror. So every country has its own standardization committee. So get involved with the local one. And what they do is they either have, if it's big enough, they either have their own blockchain committee for that country, or if they're not big enough, then they use the country's body as a vehicle to access to ISO committees. So I would recommend it's a collaborative effort, and get involved and be involved and contribute, because there's a lot of things happening, there's a lot of progress going on, but it only is successful if everyone is working on it, code designing, code developing, and doing this together as an industry. And in TC307, I mean, we have a really good mix of experts. We have hundreds of people from all around the world, and they come from industry. We've got people from Oracle, Google, IBM, where I work at Quant. We've got people from government bodies such as NIST in the US. We've got people from European Commission, other government bodies around the world. But then we also have people from academia who are, leading experts in their field. They do this as their research. So there's really strong academic connection. And then we've got people from industry who have been working in this space in different organizations like LACChain, LACNet, IDB, and they're being, participating and being involved. And then finally, we have independent experts, people who are not one of those, but they're an expert in that field, and they're also, part of standards committees. So it's a very collaborative and joint effort, and everyone needs to contribute to make it a success. So yeah, the advice is don't do it on your own. Be collaborative and participate.
Wow, I really appreciate this open mindset, Gilbert. This is really what is going on. This diversity in the ISO TC307 is happening, and let's contribute, let's cooperate, and let's be collaborative. Anyone can bring their project and an approach. I really appreciate this interview for your mindset, for your experience, and for your knowledge sharing in this collective knowledge that we are working, all of us, in it. Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Ismail. Great to talk to you and to the LACNet team, and look forward to talking more. Thank you.